You bolt upright in bed, heart pounding. The room is dark, but your mind is illuminated by the vivid remnants of a dream about someone you haven't spoken to in years, your ex. Whether it was a passionate reunion, a heated argument, or simply seeing them in a crowd, these nocturnal encounters leave us confused, emotional, and searching for meaning in the morning light. Dreams about former partners are among the most common dream scenarios, affecting people across cultures, regardless of their current relationship status. What's particularly fascinating isn't just their prevalence, but their persistence, appearing months, years, even decades after relationships have ended. This universality suggests something deeper at work beneath the surface of our consciousness. While modern psychology has offered numerous frameworks for understanding dreams, the theories of Sigmund Freud, often dismissed as outdated, provide surprisingly relevant insights into why our exes continue to haunt our sleeping minds. Freud's revolutionary concept that dreams serve as the royal road to the unconscious offers a compelling explanation for why these specific dreams occur and what they're trying to tell us about our deepest selves. The truth is, these dreams aren't really about your ex at all. They're about you, your unresolved emotions, unfulfilled desires, and unprocessed experiences. When Freud proposed that dreams represent wish fulfillment and symbolic expressions of repressed thoughts, he provided a framework that explains why someone long gone from your waking life continues to appear in your most vulnerable state. In exploring the Freudian perspective on dreams about former partners, we'll journey through the landscape of the unconscious mind, examining the hidden meanings behind reconciliation fantasies, conflict scenarios, and observations from afar. We'll uncover how the principle of displacement transforms your ex into a powerful symbol, and how repetition compulsion explains why certain dream patterns persist. Most importantly, we'll discover how these dreams, rather than tormenting you, actually offer a path toward emotional integration and psychological healing. The next time you wake from a dream about an ex, you'll be equipped to understand what your unconscious mind is really trying to tell you, and why Freud, despite his controversial legacy, might have been right all along. To understand why dreams about exes carry such psychological weight, we must first grasp the fundamental principles of Freudian dream theory. Contrary to the common misconception that Freud reduced everything to sexual desire, his framework was far more nuanced, especially regarding how our minds process complex emotions during sleep. Central to Freud's theory is the distinction between manifest and latent content. The manifest content is what you literally remember: the storyline, characters, and setting of the dream. In contrast, the latent content represents the hidden psychological meaning, the repressed wishes, fears, and conflicts that your conscious mind typically shields you from. This distinction is crucial because when your ex appears in your dream, manifest content, they may represent something entirely different in your unconscious, latent content. Freud proposed that dreams function as a safety valve for the unconscious mind. During wakefulness, our conscious ego maintains rigid control over unacceptable thoughts and desires, keeping them repressed. But during sleep, when consciousness relaxes its grip, these repressed elements emerge, albeit in disguised form. The disguise is necessary because some desires and fears remain too threatening to acknowledge directly, even in dreams. Modern neuroscience has validated aspects of this theory through brain imaging studies showing that emotional processing continues during REM sleep, the stage when most vivid dreaming occurs. The amygdala, associated with emotional reactions, becomes highly active, while the prefrontal cortex, responsible for logical thinking, shows reduced activity. This neurological state creates the perfect conditions for emotional processing without the constraints of rational thought. Exactly the scenario Freud described over a century ago. The emotional brain essentially works through unresolved feelings when the logical brain isn't fully online to suppress them. This explains why dreams about significant relationships often feel so emotionally charged. They represent the unconscious mind's attempt to process complex feelings that the waking mind might avoid or rationalize away. For dreams about former partners specifically, this framework explains why they often occur when we're experiencing transitions, insecurities, or emotional challenges that may have nothing to do with the ex themselves. The ex becomes a vessel through which the unconscious communicates about our current emotional state. Dreams involving former partners typically fall into several recognizable categories, each with distinct psychological implications when viewed through a Freudian lens. Understanding these patterns can provide remarkable insight into what your unconscious is really communicating. Reconciliation dreams, where you and your ex reunite romantically, are perhaps the most common and emotionally confusing. You might wake up feeling disturbed, especially if you're happily involved with someone else, or if the relationship ended painfully. Freud would interpret these not as literal desire to reunite, but as symbolic representations of unintegrated aspects of yourself. The qualities you were drawn to in your ex, perhaps their confidence, creativity, or emotional openness, are traits you may be seeking to reclaim or develop within yourself. The reconciliation symbolizes an internal psychological integration rather than an actual wish to resume the relationship. Conflict or argument dreams reveal unresolved tensions, not necessarily with the ex themselves, but often with what they represent in your psyche. If you're repeatedly arguing about the same issues that plagued your actual relationship, your unconscious may be processing leftover emotional material. However, Freud would suggest looking deeper. The conflict might symbolize internal contradictions you're currently experiencing in an entirely different area of life. Your ex simply provides a familiar face for this internal struggle. Intimate or sexual dreams about former partners often cause the most discomfort and confusion. From a Freudian perspective, these dreams rarely indicate actual sexual longing for the specific person. Instead, they typically represent deeper psychological needs for connection, validation, or expression of aspects of your sexual identity that feel undernourished in your current life. The sexual imagery serves as powerful symbolic language for the unconscious to express non-sexual psychological needs. Perhaps most intriguing are observation dreams, where you simply see your ex from afar, perhaps with someone new or living a different life. These dreams often reflect your mind's attempt to achieve closure and separation from the psychological imprint of the relationship. You are literally seeing them off in your unconscious, processing the reality that your paths have diverged. These dreams frequently occur during transitions in your own life, when you're ready to integrate the lessons of past relationships into your evolving identity. The emotional tone of these dreams, whether you feel sad, anxious, relieved, or indifferent, provides crucial information about what unresolved feelings remain. Freud emphasized that emotional content in dreams offers more reliable insight than the specific imagery or narrative. If you wake feeling peaceful after a dream about an ex, it suggests healthy emotional processing, regardless of the dream scenario. The cornerstone of Freud's dream theory, and perhaps his most misunderstood concept, is that dreams represent wish fulfillment. Applied to dreams about former partners, this doesn't simply mean you secretly wish to be with them again. The wishes Freud described operate at a much deeper psychological level than conscious desires. When Freud spoke of wishes in dreams, he referred to unfulfilled psychological needs and unresolved emotional states seeking expression and completion. These wishes often originate in our earliest experiences of attachment, loss, and desire, what he termed the pleasure principle, and continue to influence our emotional lives well into adulthood. Our past relationships tap into these fundamental patterns, which is why they leave such powerful imprints on our unconscious. Consider the common dream scenario of an ex apologizing for past hurts or acknowledging their mistakes. The surface interpretation might suggest a simple desire for validation. However, a deeper Freudian analysis reveals something more profound. The wish being fulfilled isn't merely for vindication from this specific person, but for resolution of a primary psychological wound, perhaps related to feeling unheard, devalued, or abandoned. The ex simply provides a relevant contemporary figure onto which this deeper, older wish is projected. Dreams where an ex returns, declaring they made a terrible mistake in leaving, similarly fulfill complex wishes beyond the obvious. They satisfy not just the desire for validation, but often deeper yearnings for wholeness, for healing narcissistic injuries, wounds to self-esteem, and for restoring a sense of control over painful losses. These dreams are particularly common during life transitions where self-worth feels threatened, career changes, aging milestones, or embarking on new relationships. Freud's genius was recognizing that dreams about significant others often fulfill wishes we cannot consciously acknowledge, desires that might seem selfish, contradictory to our values, or simply too vulnerable to face directly. The dream disguises these wishes in symbolic form, allowing the psyche to process them without overwhelming conscious awareness. This explains why dreams about exes frequently occur when we're facing situations that echo the emotional dynamics of the past relationship. If a current work conflict triggers feelings of being undervalued, similar to what you experienced with an ex, your unconscious might process this through a dream about the former partner rather than the current colleague. The emotional signature is similar, but the ex represents a completed narrative your unconscious can use to work through the feelings. By recognizing the wish fulfillment aspect of these dreams, we can ask more insightful questions about what psychological needs remain unmet in our waking lives, rather than fixating on whether the dream indicates unresolved feelings for the specific person who appeared in it. Perhaps Freud's most enduring contribution to understanding dreams is his recognition that dream content operates through symbolic representation and displacement, concepts particularly relevant to dreams about former partners. Your ex is rarely just your ex in dreams. They function as powerful symbols within your personal psychological landscape. Symbolic representation occurs when one element in a dream stands for something else entirely. Your ex might symbolize aspects of yourself, patterns in relationships, or even abstract concepts like vulnerability, freedom, or commitment. A particularly creative ex might appear in dreams when you're struggling with self-expression in your current life. An ex who was financially irresponsible might emerge in dreams during periods of financial stress or decision-making, representing your fears or conflicted feelings about security. This symbolic function explains why even brief, seemingly insignificant relationships can feature prominently in dreams. It's not the person's objective importance, but what they symbolize in your psychological world that determines their appearance. An ex from a short-lived but intensely passionate relationship might represent spontaneity or authenticity that feels absent from your current circumstances. Displacement, meanwhile, refers to the unconscious transferring emotional energy from its original source to a safer or more manageable target. Your frustration with a current partner's emotional unavailability might be too threatening to process directly, so these feelings get displaced onto dreams about an ex who displayed similar patterns. The dream allows you to process the emotional content without directly confronting the current relationship anxiety. Freud noted that dreams often condense multiple meanings and associations into single images or scenarios. Your ex might simultaneously represent aspects of your parents, current relationships, parts of yourself, and abstract emotional states, all compressed into one dream figure. This explains the emotional intensity these dreams often carry. They're processing multiple layers of psychological material simultaneously. The settings in ex dreams carry symbolic weight as well. Dreams of exes in childhood homes often process early attachment patterns being triggered in adult relationships. Dreams of exes in unfamiliar landscapes might reflect the uncertain emotional territory you're navigating in your current life. Even the weather and lighting in these dreams provide symbolic information about your emotional state regarding what the ex represents. Understanding the symbolic nature of these dreams liberates us from interpreting them literally. The appearance of an ex you haven't thought about in years doesn't necessarily indicate repressed feelings for them specifically. Rather, they've become a symbol in your unconscious for certain emotional states, relationship patterns, or aspects of yourself that are currently relevant to your psychological processing. Some of the most troubling dreams about former partners, those that recur with alarming frequency or emotional intensity, can be understood through Freud's concept of repetition compulsion. This phenomenon describes the unconscious mind's tendency to repeat traumatic or painful experiences in an attempt to master them. Freud observed that humans paradoxically revisit distressing experiences in dreams, play, and relationships, despite the conscious desire to avoid pain. He theorized that this compulsion represents the psyche's effort to transform passive suffering into active mastery, to gain control over what once felt overwhelming. In dreams about painful relationship experiences, this mechanism becomes clearly visible. Dreams that repeatedly replay arguments, betrayals, or breakups aren't simply reopening emotional wounds. From a Freudian perspective, they represent the unconscious mind's attempt to resolve what remains unintegrated about these experiences. Each repetition provides another opportunity to understand, process, and eventually transcend the psychological impact of the relationship. These repetitive dreams often occur in predictable patterns. They might intensify during periods when similar emotional dynamics arise in current relationships or life situations. They frequently emerge during major life transitions, new relationships, career changes, or when making commitments similar to those in the previous relationship. This timing reflects the psyche's need to resolve old patterns before fully engaging with new experiences. Particularly significant are dreams where the scenario slightly changes with each repetition. Perhaps in earlier dreams, you were powerless in confrontations with an ex, but in later iterations, you find your voice or set boundaries. These evolving dream narratives reveal the healing process at work, the unconscious gradually rewriting the emotional script to restore a sense of agency and wholeness. The healing function of these dreams becomes apparent through their changing emotional tone. While initial dreams about relationship trauma often produce intense anxiety, shame, or grief upon waking, over time, and with conscious emotional processing during wakefulness, these dreams typically evolve to generate less distress. Eventually, dreams about even painful past relationships can evoke emotional neutrality or even provide comfort, signaling successful integration of the experience. For particularly traumatic relationship experiences, these recurring dreams serve as the mind's natural processing mechanism, similar to how the brain processes PTSD through dream states. Rather than pathologizing these dreams, Freud would encourage seeing them as evidence of the psyche's inherent movement toward healing, albeit through temporarily uncomfortable means. By recognizing repetition compulsion in dreams about former partners, we gain compassion for our unconscious processes. What might seem like emotional backsliding or unhealthy fixation is actually the mind's sophisticated attempt to transform relationship wounds into psychological growth and renewed capacity for connection. Having explored the Freudian framework for understanding dreams about former partners, we can now turn to practical application, how to analyze these dreams for personal insight. Freud himself believed deeply in the value of self-analysis, developing techniques that remain remarkably effective for examining relationship dreams. Begin by recording the dream immediately upon waking, capturing as many details as possible, not just the narrative, but colors, emotions, unusual elements, and your feelings upon waking. This complete record provides the raw material for meaningful analysis. Note that dreams recorded even a few hours after waking lose significant detail. Next, apply the technique of free association for each major element in the dream: the X, the setting, other characters, objects. Write down whatever comes to mind without censorship or judgment. What qualities do you associate with this particular X? What was happening in your life when you were together? What emotions does the dream setting evoke? These associations often reveal connections between the dream content and current life circumstances that aren't immediately obvious. Pay particular attention to emotional incongruities in the dream. If you felt unnaturally calm during a confrontation or inexplicably anxious during a pleasant interaction, these emotional discrepancies often point toward the dream's hidden meaning. Freud recognized that displaced emotions in dreams frequently hold the key to their interpretation. Consider timing as well. What's happening in your current life that might have triggered this dream? New relationships, work challenges, identity shifts, or anniversary reactions, dreams that occur around the date of significant relationship events, often prompt the unconscious to process related emotional material through dreams about former partners. Ask yourself what the dream might be expressing that feels unsafe to acknowledge consciously. Are there wishes, fears, or needs in your current life that mirror dynamics from the past relationship? Does the X represent a part of yourself or your life that feels lost or unintegrated? What might you be avoiding in your waking life that the dream is attempting to process? Journal reflections can facilitate deeper exploration. Consider what the dream might represent if it weren't about your ex specifically. Reflect on what qualities or experiences associated with this person you still carry with you. Examine what unresolved feelings about yourself, not just the relationship, this dream might be processing. Contemplate how this dream could be preparing you for current or future relationships. These questions open pathways to understanding the dream's message beyond its surface narrative. While self-analysis is powerful, recognize its limitations. Dreams touching on deeply painful relationship experiences may benefit from professional guidance. Recurring dreams that produce significant distress or dreams connected to relationship trauma often respond well to therapeutic approaches that integrate dream analysis with emotional processing. The goal of analyzing dreams about former partners isn't to eliminate them. Dreams serve vital psychological functions, but to integrate their wisdom into conscious awareness. As you develop skill in understanding these dreams, they become less mysterious disturbances and more valuable communications from your deeper self. The appearance of an ex in your dreams, rather than being a psychological setback or an indication of emotional stagnation, represents something far more significant: your mind's inherent movement toward wholeness and integration. These dreams, viewed through Freud's framework, reveal the sophisticated mechanisms through which your unconscious processes relationship experiences and transforms them into psychological growth. When we understand that dreams about former partners are rarely about the specific person and more about what they symbolize in our emotional landscape, we free ourselves from unnecessary confusion and self-judgment. Your dreaming mind uses the rich emotional material of past relationships as a language through which to communicate about your current psychological needs, unintegrated experiences, and pathways toward healing. This perspective transforms how we relate to these dreams, from disturbances to be avoided into valuable messages to be decoded. Each dream about a former partner offers an opportunity to better understand yourself, to recognize patterns in how you form attachments, process losses, and construct your identity through relationships. The wisdom of Freud's approach lies in recognizing that our unconscious minds are continuously working toward resolution, even when our conscious awareness resists this process. Your dreams about exes, even when uncomfortable, represent your psyche's inherent movement toward emotional health, processing what remains unresolved, integrating split-off aspects of yourself, and preparing you for more fulfilling connections in the present. As you develop a more compassionate relationship with these dreams, you may notice their nature evolving, becoming less frequent, less emotionally charged, or shifting in content to reflect your ongoing growth. This evolution itself provides evidence of successful psychological integration. The next time you wake from a dream about someone from your past, rather than dismissing it or overanalyzing what it means about that specific relationship, consider the deeper message. Your unconscious is communicating something important about your current emotional life, using the language of past relationships to illuminate present realities. In this way, even the most perplexing dreams about former partners become not hauntings from the past, but guideposts toward a more integrated and emotionally authentic future.